What's up, everybody? This is Tiana from Straight from the Crates. Today we are talking about Guy's self titled debut album. And this project, it didn't just introduce a group, it helped define an entire sound, which was New Jack Swing. And I want to ask, was this album pure genius, or were we dancing to some of the most toxic lyrics ever recorded? And only because it sounded too good to question. So let's get straight into it. So I want to talk about Teddy Riley and him being like the architect of this new musical genre. Like this album in particular is where hip hop drums, they met R&B smoothness in a way that nobody had like quite realized yet. So, we've got heavy drums, funk bass lines, gospel style vocals, and added a hip hop attitude. And for me, like that combination, that is what or how you explain New Jack Swing. And once this album dropped in 1988, it spread everywhere. So we know this genre, but some of us, well, me, I know the genre, but some younger people, they may not know like that it's a subgenre of R&B. So when they hear artists like Bobby Brown or Keith Sweat or Belle Biv DeVoe, and even Michael Jackson, all of these people tapped into New Jack Swing during the time, like it was the most popular sound. And for me, it wasn't just music; it looked like a lifestyle shift, like fashion changed, the way people dance changed, the energy in R&B became more aggressive and more confident, and also it seemed like more street. And then on top of all of that, you bring in New Jack City a few years later. Now this sound has a visual identity, which was flashy suits, power, danger, money, control. And this era to me made R&B feel like it was a little bit more risky and fun. So, you know, I think for me the album is pretty cool and I love it, and it's one of the albums for me that I can just listen to over and over. And it's because of two specific things: Teddy Riley's production and the big pink elephant in the room, which is Aaron Hall. Because vocally, he's undeniable. His voice is trained in the church, he's so emotional, raw, and the voice itself is really seductive. He can sound like he's begging while also sounding like he doesn't care if you leave. And that's the contradictions where for me things get complicated. Like if you take Piece of My Love, on the surface it feels smooth, addictive, catchy. But if you listen to the words, he's basically saying you're not the only one and you need to accept that. And for me, that's not love. That sounds like terms and condition. Condition. So for me, like my whole life, I listen to that song. I'm like, this is such a beautiful love song. And then you listen to the first 35 seconds of that record in particular, and he says, "You can have a piece of my love," and the undercurrent, he says, "Dumb bitch." And it's just like, if you're not even listening clearly and you're just hearing his beautiful voice, you never actually hear what he's talking about. And to me, that it's crazy how music can make you have all these positive emotions when it's actually full of toxicity. And then you've got Groove Me, which is like a pure talking about this chemistry that you have and this great vibe, but it's all physical and immediate. Like there's no emotional grounding. So yeah, even in that song, it's just like, I'm here for a good time and I don't really care anything about you. And then if we go to Goodbye Love, that's an emotional song, but it's emotional manipulation, all wrapped up into heartbreak. So this album in itself is not about love. It's all about abusing someone in the most, beautiful and polite way through song in a nice voice. So my question is, were women missing the message because the production was so good and the voice was so beautiful? Or did they hear it and just accept it as part of the game? Because for me, Aaron Hall wasn't hiding anything on this album. He was telling you exactly who he was. So my other question is Aaron Hall the villain, or is he just the most honest version of the male R&B archetype? Because if we're going to be real, a lot of male R&B singers were saying the same things, just softer. And Aaron said it directly. Basically just, I'm not committing to you. I have emotional inconsistency and I desire you, but I don't want any of the responsibility. So to me, this album, he sounded like the crazy man in love who's given all, that strange energy. And it sounded passionate, but it's unstable. And yet, people really love this. So another question is this album a warning or is it a fantasy? Because to some listeners, they'd say this is toxic behavior. For others, they'd say this is real emotions with no filter. And the wildest part to me is that this album sounds so good. And everything, the energy, it makes me feel alive. And you can hear like this DNA of this album in just this era in, modern artists like Chris Brown, Usher, Brent Faya, and even the modern, I guess, hip hop R&B fusion, like how like Aaliyah and Beyonce, how like they're not, singing like Whitney and Mariah. They're speaking in an almost a rap style. Like the influence of New Jack Swing and this album is everywhere. But for me, what's interesting is that we call out a lot of these lyrics today immediately, but back then they were normalized. So when we revisit Guy now, we're hearing two things at once. It's like we're hearing a groundbreaking musical blueprint and also a time capsule for relationship dynamics that people are now questioning. So I guess in this video, I have lots of questions. So I really want y'all to talk to me. Um, so my last question is, was God giving us timeless music or were we dancing to dysfunction dressed up as love? And is Aaron Hall a red flag or just a man who never lied? All right, so talk to me down in the comments. Give me your opinions. Ask me some questions, or ask the other people in the comments questions. And I feel like this might have a split down the middle. So thank you for watching. Always remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.